Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet Daymond John. And if you don't know who Daymond John is, he's one of the sharks on Shark Tank. He also built a company called FUBU, which is an apparel company. I think they've done like $6 billion in revenue. So he's a very successful entrepreneur. He's also from humble beginnings. But in this video, I want to talk about some of the lessons that I learned from meeting Daymond John. I'm sharing this video because I realized that it was a privilege to meet Daymond. I was one of 40 people to meet him. He did like a conference at my school, Howard University. But yeah, they had like 10 slots for honor students to go to, and I was able to get one of those slots. So even getting one of those slots was, a privilege. So I just want to share some of the lessons that I learned from speaking to him, because it was just such a great conference, and I really want to share it because, again, it was a privilege for me to go to it. So if you're interested in being an entrepreneur or just wanting to improve your life, this video is going to help you. So definitely keep watching. Okay, so the first lesson I learned from this talk was the importance of being a student of life. And I guess to really explain this, I want to give more context to Daymond's story. So again, Daymond is from very humble beginnings. He's from Queens. But yeah, he said that like he was always, pretty entrepreneurial, but he thought that he was too cool for school. And so instead of going to college, he decided to, I think, like go on tour, but it didn't end up working out. I know he was into music, and yeah, just by the end of that tour, it didn't work out. So when he was turning 22, all of his friends that went to college were graduating. And so he said in the talk that he felt like he was a loser, because while his friends were getting, these corporate jobs, he was working at Red Lobster, and he was basically working all day from like 11 a.m. to like 12 p.m. And so during that period, he was also building his business, FUBU. And he says that he quit that business at least like 3 to 4 times. But eventually when he was 28, the business ended up taking off. And he talks about how he was working from, again, like 11 to 12. But then after his shift from work, he would basically work on his business from like 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. And then he would get up at 6 a.m., work on the business until 11 a.m. when he had to go back to work for Red Lobster. And so I guess to kind of like make a long story short, basically what I took away from this was a lot of his college friends, they kept working, and Daymond, he felt like a loser, but he always had that skill of wanting to learn. He knew that he wanted to grow his business, even if it took 3 or 4 times quitting the business, but coming back to it. And then of course, working from 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. and then basically getting 4 hours of sleep. And between that time working on the business, like this was a guy that he knew that his business was going to succeed. He knew that it had to succeed. And so even though he didn't go to college and his friends had, these fancy jobs, he never forgot the importance of being a student and working hard and really making sure that he continued to learn and grow. So my final takeaway from Daymond's story is being a student isn't equivalent to getting your education. Rather, being a student is continuing to learn and continuing to grow. And whether you finish college or whether you don't go to college or don't even finish high school, that doesn't matter. It's more about continuing to learn, because if you have that drive of continuing to learn and continuing to be a student, then in whatever you do, you will be successful, because you'll have that work ethic and you'll have the right foundations to be successful in that field. So really make sure that you're a student and that you continue to be a student, especially for like you college students. Like if you're graduating, that's not the end of you being a student. Rather, it's just the start. So continue to be a student, because that doesn't end after college. Okay, so the second lesson I learned from this discussion with Daymond was this idea of you can sell anything that you consume. So for example, with Daymond, he said that he was very passionate about clothes, just like general apparel. And so he built his company around just apparel. And so obviously, like for whatever you consume, like there has to be a market. And so if you're thinking about like a business to start, like the first thing that you should really look at is like, okay, what do I consume? So I know, for example, for me, I knew that something that I really consume a lot is YouTube. So, like when deciding, okay, which should I start? I remember I considered like starting a drop shipping business. We won't get too far into that, But the second thing that I really considered was, okay, why don't I just start a YouTube channel? Because it's something that, I've always wanted to start. It's something that I actively consume. So if you're thinking about like something to start, just really look at like, okay, what do I consume? And that's like a beginning place to look at, okay, this is something that maybe I can potentially build a business around. Okay, so the third lesson I've learned, and this is kind of like a simple lesson, so this one will be short, but it's really to learn the business that you're in. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to do this. If you're just like working a job, really learn the craft that you're in. So this idea of like developing a craft and craftsmanship. And again, like this is similar to being a student, but whatever business that you're in, really make sure that you learn the basics of that business, because in order to succeed, you have to know the basics of whatever you're doing. So again, just make sure that you know the basics of whatever business you're in. I know this is like a simple lesson, but it was something that was constantly brought up during this talk, so I think it is important to mention. Okay, so the fourth lesson, and this is going to be 5 lessons, but this one was really informative, and it actually didn't come from Daymond, it came from Kenny Johnson. Daymond was interviewing Kenny, but he said that you should create weekly or daily goals, because if you create like these long-term goals, so like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, even a 3-year plan, it's just really difficult to hold yourself accountable. So if you have these weekly goals, you can constantly, hold yourself accountable, and you can get instant feedback. And as humans, we're not really that rational. We like to think that we are, but we tend to do the things that we desire and kind of procrastinate on things. So if you set these weekly goals, you can get instant feedback for how you're doing. And also, you can really not only get that feedback, but you can also win every week. So for example, if you set weekly goals and you're winning every week, then you're building that self-efficacy. And so you're building kind of that self-confidence, that self-belief that, okay, I can actually do this thing. So really make sure that you set like these short-term goals so that you can get results and you can get instant feedback, but also you can begin to really develop belief in yourself. Because a lot of people, like, we have these long-term goals, but if we're like 3 months in, but we're not actually like where we want to be, like, of course you aren't, because you're only 3 months in. But if you have these weekly goals and you're getting feedback, then you can say, okay, like, I've been hitting these goals weekly, so I'm making steps to get to where I want to go. Okay, so the final lesson I want to talk about, and this isn't something that like Daymond talked about, but just something that I observed. Really this idea of like some of the people that maybe we admire or that we respect or just look up to, these are just normal people. And let me explain. Okay, so this talk, it was more so like an interview. So Daymond was interviewing Kenny. Kenny is like he's an executive at PepsiCo. So Daymond, he was, interviewing Kenny, but he had to like ask the first question like 3 times. So it took him like 3 takes. I guess what amazed me was just how long it took Daymond to actually like say his lines correctly. And so it made me feel like, wow, like I actually criticized myself so much for, messing up, but Daymond, he kind of does like all of the things that I do. So yeah, the main lesson I took away was like, okay, I don't have to be so, critical of myself. Just like keep pushing, keep improving, because actually, some of the people that I admire, they're actually in the same boat. And, you may not realize it from the outside, but actually like experiencing him like mess up his lines, it made me realize like I can calm down about messing up, because this is something that even people who are on TV, they make the same mistakes. And again, that's not to say that I'm like a professional or anything, but it's more so to say that like I don't have to be so self-critical. And in your own lives, if you are very self-critical, you don't have to be so self-critical of yourself, because maybe that person that you hold a high level of respect for, they're in the same position, but you don't even know it. So those are some of the lessons that I took away from Daymond's talk. And yeah, I just want to say like, it was such a pleasure to actually be able to go to that event. And yeah, I'm just happy that I could share some of the lessons that I learned with you guys. So I hope this video was helpful. And if you found value in this video, please feel free to like or subscribe. it really helps the video, go out to more people. And yeah, if you found, value from this, then I hope other people can find value from it too. So definitely feel free to do that. But I, again, really enjoyed sharing these lessons, and definitely let me know in the comments, what types of videos you guys want to see. I would really appreciate your feedback. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.